Um, we, oh, apologize. Let me take a drink. I'm ready, but my voice is not. Okay. Thank you for joining today. My name is Bob Black. I'm the Division Vice President for the Multi-Industry Division. Scott Smallback is going to be delivering us a presentation today on Report Designer. Wanted to mention, we got just a couple slides for action that we're going to show you. I think we also want to mention we had a webinar yesterday. Just to be, we've not done. That's the first time we've done two of these customer-focused webinars in the same week. Yesterday we did one on customizations, and we'll be sending out a link to a document and some information about that yesterday. I think we didn't get quite as many people as I thought we were going to get. We had a good attendance, but it wasn't quite as many as we we were hoping. It's a really great topic. It's an important topic, and just wanted to mention to watch your email. As a customer, we're going to send it out to all customers probably sometime early next week. That we just wanted to alert you to kind of look out for that. I think it's some real worthwhile content, including a best practices document for managing customization. So just want to give you the heads up about that. The intent of these webinars is to simply give something back to our customers, trying to bring value as your partner. Just got a couple slides here we're going to go over real quickly, and then we'll turn it over to Scott, and we'll get into the report designer. Action does offer a platform and application support agreement. In addition to this, is complementary to the Acumatica support agreement. If you have any questions or interest in that, just be sure and reach out to your sales rep. Next slide. Always want to remind people about one of the greatest things about Acumatica is the community. It's a great place to go and log support cases, discuss product ideas, get education, news and announcements. There's lots of good things going on out there, and also a place to ask questions. Hey, is anybody else having the same issue we're having? It's a great place to kind of say that. Always kind of keeping current on the product life cycle. Acumatica is certainly moving towards a more of an always current program for new customers. I think that's something that they'll be offering to current customers also coming up. So just know that staying current is something that is a priority for Acumatica and for us as your partner. So these things do expire, and want to just keep moving forward at the correct pace. And with that, that's enough on my side. Turn it over to Scott and take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. That was a good introduction. And so today we're going to highlight the report designer functionality within Acumatica. We've had a few of these webinars now where we've talked about different ways of getting data and analytics out of the system. So generic inquiries, dashboards, and then there's actual reports that can be, if you have a report that needs to be presented to someone, or an invoice format or grouping, or things that are outside of, like when inquiry can provide, for example. There's a report designer that already has a pretty significant set of reports out of the box that can be then modified to your specific needs, or you can create new ones as well. And you can see some of the different capabilities of the reports, where you can have different parameters, filter it differently, have sub-reports within the reports, which is a great way to have, two different types of data yet merged into one report, images and QR codes, things like that, all within the reporting capability. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hop over into my demonstration environment here. And just a quick, before we look at the designer, inside of Acumatica, on each of the workspaces, you're going to have a reports section. So you can certainly, within whichever workspace you're in, you can access reports there. Of course, you can also search out here. And I did want to take one step back. Every time I do one of these, I always like to point out and really highlight the open university that Acumatica has for all of this content. And This one here with Report Designer in particular is one that it really would, does take going through here and at least accessing things like the installation guide. Because one thing I didn't mention on that previous slide is that unlike 99% of Acumatica that's a web-based application, the Report Designer actually has a program that gets installed on your computer, and when you're actually designing the report, you're doing that from within a desktop application. And so you're really going to be well served to go here into Open University, grab that installation guide. They'll walk you through the steps of getting that Report Designer installed. And then of course the training guide is going to have that training materials for the Report Designer. That Acumatica puts a lot of effort into the training materials that they make available, and it sure is appreciated. But looking back here at this workspace, I'm going to go ahead and just open up this AR balance by customer. And anytime you get ready to run a report, you can have, these are going to be different, these parameters. Each report could have its own parameters associated with it, as well as you can save under templates here. If I wanted to put some different filtering, it's very similar to how you do all your filtering within generic inquiries and things like that. So maybe I want some type of a date and have that be between certain values, and then I could save that as a template. So I could always run this same report with different sets of data based on whichever filter sets I'm working with. But if I go ahead and I just run this report with the default values here, then I think I went ahead and actually had put a filter on there. Let's clear that out. There we go. So now see here is just an example of an AR balance by customer report with the information. Note that you can have hyperlinks so that I can, even within this report, I can jump to specific records within Acumatica. And then I can go ahead and export that out either, if it's formatted well to go into a spreadsheet, those reports can come into an Excel format, or I can do it as a PDF and maybe I print that or send that to someone else. So that's kind of inside the application, how you would run a report, and some of the the features there as far as the parameters and things like that. So now let's go ahead and look at the designer. I've already installed the designer on my computer. Here if I just open it up, here I am with a brand new report. And let me see here if I still have, no, I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to, in the interest of time, because we do only have a limited time on these calls, I'm going to open up a sample here that I'd already done. And I'm just going to grab off this top header section. And then I'm going to do a new report again. And I'm just going to paste that in there. So I've just pasted on some text fields and a line here. Over here on the right-hand side, you've got kind of your toolbox here. If I wanted to add another text box, I could just drag that over, type in whatever I would want there, and it would appear on the report. So that's all I've done here at the start, is I've just added that into the header section. We've got a header, we've got our detail line. So each line of data that's in the report is going to appear in this detail section. And then we have a footer section, and we can add additional groups and things like that as well. So for now, the first thing I need to do is connect to some data. And so to do that, I'm going to go File, Build Schema. And now I need to actually connect to Acumatica. So I'm connecting to this demo environment here. I've already got my username and password. Note that if you're logging into a specific tenant, kind of the format here, you've got your username, an @sign, and then the actual tenant name that you're logging into. I'm going to load the schema, and now you're going to see all of the different DACs inside of Acumatica, different data tables, if you will, within Acumatica are going to show up here. And so for this one, I'm just going to go and type in the search here, filter this down, and I want the AR invoice information. And for the example we're doing today, I'm just grabbing this one table of information. So you can see here's AR invoice and all the different fields that are within that particular table. But if I needed to show other information, like for example, if I wanted to see like the total for the invoice, I might need to go over to like AR transaction to get that, to get that information, and then I'd have to link them together using the relationships tab. But that goes a little outside of this this demonstration today. But we will have the ability, you do have the ability to to add in as many different tables of information that you'd like. Then here's where you define the relationships. So maybe it's based on the reference number that relates one table to another so that they link together. And then as we saw those different parameters on the screen, those are populated here. So this is where you could come in here and you could add a parameter. Maybe it would be customer, and then you would add like the values to like create the lookup to be able to select a customer. Or maybe it would be, invoice number, or sales order number, or a user, or something like that, or a date, any type of parameter that you want to go in here. And then you're able to create filters as well, just as we did with an inquiry, or as we were doing with the report. Here's where we can add different filters in here, and then that's where you would leverage those parameters. You would have the parameter, basically setting the value for the filter here. And again, that I can't stress enough how much just going through that user training from Open University really walks you through step-by-step examples of how to work through all that, because it can get complicated when you're dealing with multiple tables of information and getting the parameters set, getting the filters all just set right. So there I've gone ahead and now you'll notice over here in my window here, I've got under fields, I can go ahead and I can see all the different fields that are now added to this report. So I've just created a few different headers here for document type, reference number, balance. So I'm going to go ahead and find those fields here. So we're going to have document type. And I can just click and drag, put that here in that detail section. And reference number, same thing, find that one. And I can drag it like this with my mouse, or I can go ahead and use the keyboard as well. And then for the balance, you'll notice that Acumatica already has these ones here that start with CURY, and that's because it's localizing the data, all the values based on the currency. So it's going to be in the currency that this invoice or memo was created in. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say doc balance here and put that on there. And now I'm going to go ahead and just make this, if I grab this footer section, drag it up. Now I've gone ahead and now I can always click preview down here at the bottom. So I'm going to click preview. And now we can see, and again, this is just the first few records. So it goes ahead, the system just gives you in the preview mode here, just the first few records of information. So we can see we have some credit memos, some reference numbers, some balances. But let's say we want to go ahead and add in a customer to this. So again, I'm just going to drag over a text box here, and you get this little red line when you overlap things. And so in order to set the value there, that's going to be on the value here. And it's going to be customer. And now I'm going to go to my fields, and we've got a couple different fields here. We've got the customer's ID, and then like their account, their customer account name right here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and let's just highlight all these and move them over a bit. Same thing here. You can only grab within a section, unfortunately, so I have to kind of do it in two batches. But I'm going to go ahead and drag in the customer ID right here and make it a little smaller. And then I'm going to grab in that customer name. And we're probably starting to get to where we're running out of some real estate here. So let me just, these are on top of the line, so they were red. All right, so let's preview that. And now you can see we've got that customer name in here, and we've got their ID value. But likely in this report, you'd want to see the records for each customer group together, not necessarily seeing here we've got one customer, then another customer, a couple from ABC Studios. So we want to go ahead and we can add a group there to structure this so that all the customers are together. So to do that, we have to go over here to properties and then jump up to report and groups. And then we can go ahead and we can add any number of groups here. I'm going to just call this customer. And then we have to pick the value that we are grouping by. And so we get this formula editor here. And again, we can see all of our fields are right here, just like they were on the design screen. And I'm going to go ahead and get that customer ID in there. So now we're going to have this information grouped by customer ID. And say OK, and OK, and OK. And so now we've got a header and a footer section for this particular group. So I'm going to go ahead and just take these fields that we already put on there. Oops. And I'm going to just move those up, cut them, and then paste them into the header here. So now they're going to show up in that group header. And let's go ahead and you can, on the in the properties over here is where you can deal with things like style and things like that. So we can bold and resize and all that. So I'm just going to simply make these bold, just rather than going in and making them a different size or a different, whatever. You can make them look just as exactly how you want. Move this up here, and now let's click on preview. There we go. Now you see we're getting those first samples here are coming in just for ABC Studio and all of their values. And this one doesn't have any balance on it. Before we actually get this into Acumatica, let's go ahead and let's just get a total on here. And so I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste this field here. And all I need to do, again, if I click on the value here, I can do a lot of different things with these formulas here as far as working with the values that are being displayed. But in this case, all I want to do, I just want to throw a sum in there so that it's going to go ahead and give me a summary of all the records that are in that particular group. And I'm going to actually just copy that same one and put it in the footer, and then that'll give me a total for the entire report. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just save that to the server. So again, if I want to grab one off the server, I'd say open from server. Here we're going to do save to server, and we're going to grab the demo. It's not. I haven't gone to this one before, so let me just really quickly. I'm going to say build schema. I just want to grab this URL without having to jump around too much. And now I'm going to do save to server, paste in that URL, and here we're going to change this to admin at demo template, and the password. I'm going to say load reports list, so I can see now a whole list of the reports that are already in the system. I'm going to call this invoice by customer. And one thing that's really nice about the reports is there's a versioning functionality here. And I'll show you that when we're back over in the application. But what the versioning does is it allows me to save this as a new version so that the old version of the report is still there, and you can switch back to the old version if necessary to roll back that that change. So there I went ahead and I just saved that into the system. So now to actually access that report over here, we need to get it onto the sitemap. And so I'm going to go to sitemap. And I'm going to go ahead and search for that AR customer balance is what we're looking for here. AR balance by customer right here, because I'm going to go ahead, and this one is, kind of in the same type of report, and I want to keep it in the same area. So what you're able to do here is say, what screen or form ID is it, the title for it, the actual report itself, and then over here, what workspace is it going to show up on, and then which category within that workspace is it going to show up on. So I'm going to go ahead and say new, and you'll notice that these are kind of numbered here by 10s or by 5s, just to allow room in between to add new ones. So I'm going to do, back to the beginning, AR, 6325, and I'll do this one 05, and we're going to call this invoices by customer. I'm going to copy this URL for the report here, and I'm going to replace this file name with the one we saved, which was invoice is by customer. And I'm just going to go double check that to make sure I got that right. Invoice by customer. So nope, I did have an extra S there. Take that off. And now here we can go ahead and put that on the receivables menu, workspace, I should say, to be precise, and then the reports category. And I'll go ahead and save it. So now if I go to receivables and we look at our reports and I do show all, here we should see invoices by customers now on the list. And I click on it. Here's our report, and I can go ahead and run it. And here we can see this is the report we were working with. It's grouped by customer. Here's that total coming in. I'm not exactly sure how we managed to get that total on there. We'd have to dig a little deeper. But that walks through kind of the process of a new report, adding one table of information to it, saving it to the server, adding it to the sitemap, and then running it, which I kind of just wanted to get that complete cycle walked through, just so you knew from a, if I'm just starting from scratch, because most of the time you might not be starting from scratch. A lot of times what you might do is you would come over here to the sitemap again, and we're still searching for that AR customer, and let's say we want to actually edit this existing AR balance by customer. Here we can see the report. It's AR 632500. So now if we wanted to, and let me just go to that one again real quick. And AR balance by customer. And I wanted to just show you where I was talking about the versions. This is where you can see the report versions here. There aren't any other ones in this particular example, but if there are, they'll show, all the different versions. And then over here on the active is where you can select which one you want to actually run if you're not wanting to run the latest version of that report. And we'll see this version here if I go ahead and save this after we make a quick change. So let's go back to the report designer here. And now this time we're going to say open from server. And again, I don't think, unfortunately, the way they've got these dialogues here, they retain the URLs, but they're kind of like each of their own little thing. So until I actually have gone to the demo here, it's not showing up there. So I'm going to say open from server and paste that back in there and put in my username and password. Load reports list. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up that AR 63 2500 right there and say open. Okay, so you can see this is basically the beginning. The report we did is kind of the start of this exact report, but we're going to see some differences here. So notice we've got two different header sections here for, and what's really nice too is there's a visible property here where we can have formulas that control what shows up and doesn't show up on the report. So we can hide a complete section based on, different criteria and things like that. We've got a couple different groups here. We've got a group for the period, and then we have a group for I can't quite tell what that one is right here. But you can see here we've got a visible expression over here that actually is pretty complex, so that it only shows this section based on the criteria of that particular formula. And if we go up here to build schema, I just want to point out notice this report has data from, a dozen different tables within the system. So, you can pull information from, from any module of the application. And then you go in here and you define, okay, so for the AR history by period, we're joining that to AR history. And then here are the fields that we're joining on. So again, you can get as complex as you need to, when you're building these different reports. And then those parameters. So when we look at this over here and we look at the parameters and we're able to select these different values, this is those parameters right here and how they're set up. So like, for example, we see here for a drop down of, do we want it to be a summary report or just open documents? So you're picking from a value here, or we might be picking a period right, here. So it's going to show for that branch, the period IDs that you can select from, or a particular account. So here it's going to show for a particular customer. And then you take these parameters and you see all these different names here, and then you apply those here into the filters. And if you've looked at different inquiries or things, you should be familiar, even though this one has a few more nested criteria here. It's the same idea, and all you're doing is we're saying that for some of these, they're coming off when it's got this ampersand here. That's going to be coming from a parameter. The user selects that parameter when they run the report. It gets applied here in the report when you're running it. So I know this is a lot, but I wanted to kind of take and walk through from the beginning to creating it in Acumatica, and a simple one, and then show you, here is kind of the end result of a complex one. And then you could go ahead and modify it, make some changes, and then I'm going to go ahead and then say save the server. And we're already on that one. We're already all good here, it looks like. And now I'm going to call this a demo version and say save as new version. Say OK. All right. And now we're going to go back to Acumatica, refresh the screen. And so now when I go to report versions here, you see we're on the demo version, and it's the active version. So for the very first one, it saves it as the version. And then if I made further changes and saved it again as a new version, I'd be able to, if I need to go back to this version, I could unselect it, and away we go. So by unchecking that, now we're back to that original default one, or I can say I want this version. It just doesn't, it's a little confusing because it doesn't show that original version of it. But okay, any questions? We've got a couple minutes left. I know that was, a lot of information, but, this is a complex topic that I want to make sure you kind of get your head around the basics of it and how it works. So then you can, take further action to either, educate yourself or a team member, or maybe it's something that you want to look to action to say, hey, can you help us with, modifying these different reports, or training a resource within your organization to do some of the, to help train somebody to get the skills to do the reports as well. Did we have any questions that maybe came in through the chat?
Yeah, there's one that came in. This one says, when there are multiple versions of a sub-report, how can you toggle between the versions if the report doesn't have a screen ID to go through?
Yeah, that is a bit of a challenge. I just, what I'm doing is if I need to modify the sub-report, I'm saving a different version, so I've got, sub-report 1 that's in the report. Now I'm changing that one and I'm calling it, sub-report 2. So that I can keep that, and then you could do versioning of those individual sub-reports, but I think to keep it clear, it's almost easier to just specifically name the sub-report if the sub-report's different. Sometimes the sub-report's not going to change from one version of the report to the other, but if it does, what I'm doing is just creating a new sub-report with its own name so that it's easier for me to keep track of.
I don't see any other questions, Scott. The only other question was just making sure that we recorded this and we'll be sending that recording out. So yes, that will be happening later today, hopefully. So if you have any other questions, please put them into the Q&A or the chat the next couple minutes. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so these are monthly meetings that we're hosting for our customers, just kind of focused on some aspect of Acumatica. So please watch out and attend future webinars. And thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, yep, I didn't see anything else come in. So yeah, like what Bob said, thank you for joining us. I'll be sending out the recording. Thank you, Scott, for this dive into the report designer, and look to hear from me soon. Have a great day, guys.